to LeJardin, the garden. Well, fall has arrived, cool temperatures. We have probably about the upper 40s, low 50s this morning. And we even have some early morning fog. We're shooting this early in the morning. And it's been a hectic summer. We had heat waves, we have rain, especially on weekends where we like to do a lot of our work in the garden. We find out of the weather service is saying out of 16 to 19 weeks in the growing season, 14 of those weekends were basically raining. And when those 2 weekends that are not raining, we're rushing around to get things done. So it's right now we're in about mid-October, and we usually get a frost, at least a beginning frost, early in sort of about October 12th, plus or minus 5 days. But now it's more towards, we're getting towards the end of the month, and we still haven't had any frost in this area, but the temperatures have been into the low 40s in some of the western part of the states. Are in the upper 30s and low 40s. So it has been cool in the morning, but we're still moving ahead. Right now we're cleaning up the gardens, the main garden that we're at now, and basically you want to look at specific things to do during that time period. Right now you should be looking at your records. Remember, we talked about this in the spring, that you should be keeping records on the plants, the time they were put into the ground, the time they started flowering, the types of fruits that you may have gotten from the plants, and the time period that they were harvested. And also, one year what we did, we took the weight of the products that we've harvested from the garden, and we're talking about anywhere from 10 to 40 pounds depending on the product that you're harvesting. So it's a good concept to record things about your garden. Again, we're talking, and it's also help you for next year for crop rotation, where you put tomatoes last year. For next year, you don't want to put them in the same area. You want to rotate, what we call crop rotation. So you're moving the crops around. So any diseases or fungus or bacteria that attack your plants won't be in the soil that you're planting for next year. We'll give them a year or two to go away and to be driven away, so forth. Also, the plants that you're putting into the garden, you should talk about the variety. Right now, the tomatoes have almost 65 varieties, from very small ones to giant 1-pounders that you can use and so forth. But it's up to you and what you want to do. A lot of people are just basically wanted to do the determinate type of tomato, which they all blossom together and they all harvested at the same time, while the intermediate type tomatoes are more vine-like, and they just continue producing flowers and fruit right to the end of that point. But usually tomatoes will stop production about when the temperature starts dropping below 55 degrees. So remember that when the temperature starts 55 degrees, cut the top of your tomatoes off, and the tomatoes below that harvest later on, and they'll mature quickly, and you'll be able to harvest them and enjoy them in the coming weeks. Now, we also want to look at removing these plants. You want the plant material. You don't want to put them back into the soil because they may contain diseases and viruses that you don't want to contaminate your soil. So they have to be removed from the area, and you may put them in trash bags and put them into the trash system. And you want to dispose of them off the property. Right now, we're getting ready to do our tools. Remember, the tools that you use may have been contaminated by these viruses and bacterias, and you want to clean them. So you gather your barrows, your pruners, your hoes, your shovels, and any other type of tool that you use in your garden, and you want to get the dirt off of them, clean them, uh, wash them or water them down, and you may want to disinfect them also. And some standard disinfectant is you want to take 10% bleach with 90% water and so forth. So you're making a mixture of not strong bleach, but you're making enough bleach to destroy any viruses and the bacteria that may be on these tools. And you want to put them, let them dry, and then you want to, the metal ones, you want to oil to prevent rusting, because I've seen one, we forgot to do one year, and come spring when we looked at it, it was a layer of rust on it that we had to go back and dissolve that rust and put it back into service. So remember, and put your tools, after they dry, put your tools away in a dry area to keep them from being recontaminated or from rusting in the weather. Now with power tools, you may want to check with the manufacturer's instructions on how to store tools after use at that time. You may also want to disinfect some of those, especially the blade, the rototillers, that you may want to clean out the blades and put them aside. Now we also want to really emphasize the putting away of any pesticides and fungicides and even fertilizer, so the children don't get at them. You want to put them in probably a storage area or a storage box of some sort, heavy cardboard, or right now many of the stores like Home Depot are having sales on their plastic containers that you may want to put them in. Also with those containers, you want to tape them up and mark on the box or on the container what it is. And you don't want any children to gain access to these. So you may want to put them up high in the cellar, or if you have a heated garage, you put them on shelves that are into the walls, up on the higher shelves, so the children, especially the younger children, won't have access to any of these pesticides, fungicides, or fertilizers and so forth. So you want to do away with those particular areas. Now, the garden is being cleaned up. We still have some areas that are half flowering plants, and we're keeping those and let the main killing frost do away with them. But we have zinnias in one area that are very colorful, and we're going to keep them going as long as they can. They'll stay pretty well right down into the upper 30s. So be aware that some of these plants will will hold themselves quite well in cool weather. Now, talking about cool weather, we've planted this year a cool crop, and what we call these cool crops are what we planted at this time. We planted some gray shallots, and we also did something that was different. We got a packet called salad green mix called seed tapes. Now this is a tape which is impregnated with the seeds about half an inch to an inch depending on the type of plant you're putting in, and you just layer it out. It's a white layer, and then you just cover the layer, and then you water the plants until it really gets cold. But a lot of these are only 30 days and 45 days. So we did this in early October, and some of these, like the arugula, lettuce, and spinach, have just about 30 to 40 days. So we're looking for harvesting probably sometime in mid-November, and maybe even towards Thanksgiving, where we had some warm weather. But we also had Thanksgiving, we also had snow. So but we've done something different. We put a cover over these particular plants, the arugula, lettuce, and spinach, and we have them under a plastic container. So that should shelter them during very cold weather, especially a hard frost. But the shallots will be underground, so they're not going to be affected that much, and we're hoping to harvest them in late spring of next year. They're growing. They're going to have a growing period, have at least 30 to 60 days, well into November, before the ground really turns cold in December, or probably really cold in January. And the Farmer's Almanac, by the way, is saying that New England, be prepared. You had your rest period for the past couple of years with temperatures in the 50s at Christmas time. this year you can expect very frigid weather and lots of snow. So I remember one year it snowed every weekend for a month, and we had, if you total the snow, it was probably about 5 to at least 6 feet, depending on where you were, especially out in the Berkshires where they wanted a lot of snow. But the ski areas were happy, and that kept them going and so forth. Now, I had a lot of discussions during the summer with individuals who were looking for plants that were long bloomers. Now, a lot of these plants, perennials especially, will basically have maybe a 1 or 2 week spread of color, then just die away. But there are some other plants that are what they call longer bloomers, and there are shrubs that do this. The butterfly bush does it. The rose of Sharon, which basically starts in late July through the month of August and probably early September, depending on the variety. There's 3 or 4 varieties that will be extended throughout this process. So you may want to look at the little tag on these plants and see when the appropriate time period, because you can get a mixture of late summer, early fall, and late fall. So there are pretty interesting. In the perennials, you have the coreopsis, which is a yellow flower which stands just about 2 feet. Then you have the daylilies, maybe go anywhere from 24 to 36 inches, a large flower, and they will have a series of flower, which the reason they call daylilies, a flower a day that will occur, and they will probably go for 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the variety that you get. We also have cone flowers. They start in, let's see, this year my cone flowers that we had in the garden started just about mid-July, and they were blooming right up to mid-September. So that's a good 2.5 months. And depending on the variety that you get, the Rudbeckia and others that you'll really enjoy. There's also Russian sage, which is probably sort of a bushy perennial. It's probably about 2 feet tall and maybe a foot, maybe 2 feet wide. And they have a nice blue flower that comes out during the summer, and it goes from basically late June right to mid-August. And then towards the fall, it's the silver foliage, which looks great also, which gives you a real color scheme throughout the year, or throughout the growing season. The annuals, again, they bloom all summer long. But again, some of these have to be what we call deadheaded, where the flower blooms, then it sort of dies back. But you have to go in with your pruners and prune those because they're seed pods and they're taking more energy from the plant than producing flowers. So the more the deadheading that you do, the plant will produce more flowers and more flowers right to the end of the season until you until the frost kills them at that point. And in the little garden that we have outside of the main garden, we still have marigolds, a strip of marigolds going for almost, let's see, we put them in late June, and July, August, September. Right now we're in almost mid-October, and they're still blossoming in a row of bright colored yellow. So again, look at these plants, and you really enjoy their beauty throughout the season. And another way of doing this, of enjoying is pot flowers or gardening with containers. Now, we talked about the container gardening in a number of sessions in the past, and right now we have three rosemary plants that we're getting ready to bring in to the home to continue their living cycle or growing cycle throughout the winter. We have a sunroom that the temperature really goes into well into the 70s and 80s, and they're going to enjoy that area, especially it's on the south side of the home, and it gets the sun rays from almost 9 o'clock in the morning till at least 3 o'clock, and the sun is low over the horizon from what we see here. But before we're going to do that, we're going to spray on Massachusetts. That got that. But to look at some of these, I suggested in doing some of the research, some of the plants that can do well with heat, they're heat tolerant and so forth. One of those is yarrow, This is a flower. The flower heads are usually about 2 to 4 feet tall, and they'll give off the different types. They're sort of a reddish, a yellow type variety. They have purple cone flowers. Again, the Russian sage we talked about. The orange cornflower. This is the Rebecca, the coneflower. The stonecrop. This is a sedum. This is a succulent plant, which does very well in the heat. We also have what they call the blanket flower. This is a plant which is about 3 feet tall, has flowers about 2 to 3 inches wide, and they're continuous, and they bloom all summer. That's one of the plants you could get for blooming all summer, and it tolerates the heat. Now during the summer and early fall, I go on a walking tour of the community, and we go from block to block, and we've been looking at some of the gardens up there. Now usually you see the gardens you put your garden in the rear of the building, but these individuals or these homes actually had front lawn gardens or sidewalk gardens. There's a little strip near the roadway, maybe about 2 feet wide. Some of the individuals within the community actually put flowers in those areas. Now, we talked about sidewalk gardening a couple years ago, and it seems to worked out very well. Some of these individuals have made very creative gardens, sidewalk gardens and lawn gardens, I would call. And we're going to take a tour, and we're going to enjoy the way they've incorporate them into the environment of a sidewalk and roadway, and also the containers that they've used. Some of them use container gardening to show their plants off and make their home very appealing for viewing. And we'll see the types of plants that they're growing and enjoy them as we take our little tour. And we're going to go back and do some work. Right now we're harvesting some more. We're harvesting some cucumbers and celery. We have a half a dozen plants with celeries, and they're really big chunks. They're standing just about 2 feet tall, and this is what they look like. And we're going to be harvesting these today. And we're going to do some more cleanup. We've taken all the plants out that we need to. Now we're going to just take out some of the weeds that were intermixed with these. And we're going to also put in some mulch and also some leaf mulch that's been cut up by the lawnmower that we're collecting now. The leaves are just starting to make an impact on the lawn, and we're going to be doing some of that today as long as the weather holds out. Again, they're talking rain later on this afternoon, but we're hoping to get that in. And if you do have a chance, make sure you get out and see the fall colors. Depending on where you are, I would say within the 495 and from western Berkshires to 495, the colors are really impressive, especially on the turnpike. And from 495 inward, the trees are really starting to change now, and they're starting to fall. And trees that were in color last year at this time are just haven't changed yet. They haven't changed color. So we're going to have a good long color session here. But depending on the weather, they're talking heavy rain and particularly winds coming in this weekend. So we'll see what's left. But there's still a large number of trees that are still not covered in color yet. But hopefully they will start changing in the next couple of weeks. But do go out and take it. It's still impressive now with the coloration that you see. You'll see large batches of trees, of specific trees themselves, like red maple, beech, and other varieties. From what I see here, I can see the oranges, the yellow, the reds. There's a tree behind the camera here. It's a bright red, and it's very spectacular. And I'll be taking pictures of those in the coming weeks and presenting those in the late fall and probably early winter, hopefully way into December. So right now, we're going to take a walk, enjoy it, and we'll be back after that. back. I hope you enjoyed your tour of the sidewalk gardens. And right now we're looking at the area that we planted some of the cool crops. We have the gray shallots over here, and under the little plastic container that we have here, we have the arugula and the spinach and the red lettuce that we're hoping to harvest within the next 30 days. Again, enjoy the fall colors. Until next time, this is Bob Boissel at LeJardin, the garden.